Welcome, everyone. I'm Tracy Fitzpatrick, and I'll be your moderator today. Thank you so much for joining us here at Netcom Learning, a market leader in promoting lifelong learning, training, and talent development solutions. We're very excited to host today's event, Microsoft Security Operations Analyst Masterclass. Presenting today's topic is Brent Dawson. Brent is a Microsoft certified trainer with over 20 years of experience in the technology industry. Brent is also a Microsoft Dynamics architect who specializes in information security architecture, Azure DevOps, CISSP, SQL Server Administration, and architecture and enterprise architecture. He has delivered comprehensive Microsoft infrastructure and security training, giving his students the tools they need to build, maintain, and secure their Microsoft network infrastructure. Now, please bear in mind that this is an overview of a very robust topic. We offer a collection of technical and business courses that can be tailored to your specific requirements. If you are interested in a further discussion, you can make an appointment with our learning consultants through our website at netcomlearning.com. Today's session is also being recorded, so you'll get free access to the recording in the next 24 hours via email. Netcom Learning helps customers build innovative learning organizations by achieving a smarter workforce, adapting to change, and driving growth. We do this with a broad catalog of offerings, developing customized learning plans, and our global delivery capabilities. Since 1998, we have been empowering organizations with our managed learning services to help them reach optimal performance results and address challenges. We do have 9 practice areas in which we specialize. They encompass people, process, and technology training. And today's presentation is from the security practice area. Netcom Learning offers a comprehensive training portfolio of courses for the topic being covered today. Our upcoming classes include various trainings on the given courses. You can also access a variety of marketing assets, such as the free training and blogs, by clicking on the available event handout. These offerings can be found with a simple search on our website at netcomlearning.com. Today's session will provide teams with an overview of basic Microsoft 365 threat protection. You'll gain the skills to detect, prevent, and respond to security breaches with the capabilities of Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. By the end of the session, we hope you will be equipped with the knowledge to onboard devices, configure settings, and manage indicators. And now I would like to give you a quick overview of the logistics before we get started. To begin with, you do have the option to view in full screen by clicking on the full screen button on the right side of the GoToWebinar viewer. Simply hit the escape key to exit the full screen. Everyone has been muted except for our presenters. Feel free to submit any questions you have for the presenters here in the questions pane, and we will address them at the end of the session. And to get the best out of today's events, we've included the slides, courses we talk about, and marketing assets in the handout section of your GoToWebinar viewer. You may refer to them at any time to get a better understanding of today's topic. And we do realize that some of you may have to leave early and want to let you know that as you do leave the session today, you will be presented with a short survey. We would like to request for you to take a quick moment to participate in that survey. Your feedback really helps us understand your learning experience and improve our future sessions for you. The survey answers are measured on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 representing outstanding and 1 representing poor. And now I'd like to pass this over to our trainer to present today's topic. Hey, Brent, thanks so much for joining us today.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's masterclass. My name is Brent Dawson, and we will be looking at Microsoft Security Operations Analyst roles. Specifically, this is going to be geared towards the Microsoft exam SC-200. A little bit about myself. As was mentioned, I'm originally from Canada. I now live in London, UK. I've been in the IT industry for way longer than I want to admit to. It's over 30 years. I've been a Microsoft trainer for 27 now. And I've got a fair amount of experience with Azure and the entire Azure platform. And my experience goes back pretty much since its inception with Azure, and back to that dealing with security and network configurations in the Active Directory structures from back in 2000. So let's kick off today, and we're going to take a look at 5 different areas for today's presentation. First of all, we're going to take a look at how to what the basics of the Microsoft 365 threat protection is. We're also going to take a look at how to do incident management in Microsoft 365 Defender, as well Microsoft Defender for Cloud and how the cloud application management works, some techniques for threat hunting in your network and how you can prevent different types of problems within your network. And then lastly, we're going to look at Microsoft Sentinel and what that tool will give us for improved security in your network and environment. All of these tools are readily available in Azure and are recommended to be used as a way to enhance and improve the security within your network environment, both cloud and on-prem. So first of all, let's take a look at what exactly makes up Microsoft 365 threat protection. In previous versions of Windows, prior to cloud deployments, we had a tool called Microsoft Defender. And Microsoft Defender started off as a Windows antivirus tool that eventually moved its way into including checking emails, also doing threat protection against various web addresses and those sorts of things. And then eventually it got tied into a centralized management system that Microsoft Defender changed to Microsoft Advanced Defender. And that was managed centrally through a system center deployment. And so from there you could include all sorts of different things like doing multi-engine detection for antivirus and spam. You could do endpoint detection and all that sort of stuff through the tool. Eventually, when Microsoft brought out the online tools, and as far as Microsoft 365 is concerned, they took those tools and they expanded them to include the cloud-based or web-based applications and implementations. And so they've extended it now to include things like cloud servers or cloud services, IoT devices, and so forth, as well as the traditional on-prem licenses and devices that you might have in your desktop or data center. But the point of the tool is that it's designed and geared towards defending across different types of attack vectors that can happen both externally and internally. If you think about the internet and the way that the internet works, we have all of our standard hazards that exist outside the firewall. Hackers are trying to break in to steal information, and they're trying to do ransomware and all those sorts of fun things. And quite often, a lot of those are still done by simple social networking attacks, in the sense of, oh, click on this link and get 25% off this thing at this store, blah, blah, blah. And then people just blindly click on it. And the next thing you know, your system's infected. And there's some ransom company wants you to send them, $1 million in Bitcoin or, 1,000 iPhone cards or, stuff like that, right? So those types of things, still happen, but you need to make sure that we can defend against them. And so from the Microsoft Defender point of view, we're going to be looking and mitigating against external threats using Defender for Office 365. So in that example, we're going to be looking for things like phishing emails. We're going to be looking for attachments that might have a code built into them. If you remember back a few years ago, zip files seemed to be the the flavor of the month to be able to transmit viruses around to different people. And then, we started blocking zip files, or we put them into quarantine, and you'd have to request the zip file be released so that we could, open the contents of it. It might also be now a URL that exists within the email. And so you need to make sure that it's been through smart links to make sure that it's not compromised in any way, and that it's actually going to function properly. And of course, standard websites, right? Criminals are getting very, very sneaky these days and being able to create websites that are almost identical to the ones that they've compromised, but with slight change in the email address or the web address for the actual website. So instead of having it as Microsoft.com, they might have it as M1 Microsoft.com. So the I is replaced with the number 1, and you wouldn't necessarily notice the difference if you just pointed to the link and clicked on it, right? So there's all sorts of different ways that people are trying to spoof you into going to places that you shouldn't go. I know over here in the UK, there's been a problem with different spammers and hackers, sending text messages to people that have attachments in them that ultimately, basically they clear out your bank accounts. So you do have to be very careful for those sorts of things. Also outside of the external types of things, we also have IoT and operational technologies. So, Internet of Things and those sorts of stuff, where we have devices that are passing information back to a central system in whether it's an Azure or other application. And so, IoT devices can be exploited. And so they could be attached to viruses and stuff that can spread and proliferate around your organization. Same with operational systems for like manufacturing organizations, and those sorts of devices that operational things that would pass viruses around. We also then have Defender for endpoints, so that we can use things like Microsoft Defender for Cloud to, again, defend the desktop, including antivirus tools, anti-spam tools, preventing command and control takeovers from third-party tools and so forth. Azure AD Identity Protection, this is to help prevent things like brute force accounts, stolen account credentials, preventing somebody from logging in more than twice before they lock the system out, those sorts of scenarios. And lastly is Defender for Cloud Apps, where we're going to be looking at, defending applications to make sure that we don't infiltration by rogue individuals that can steal information and then pass that information around. If you look at the slides or the arrows on the top part, on the external part of the network, you'll see that everything is slightly interconnected to each other, right? So we have phishing example, we may have a phishing email that has a URL in it that might install some sort of exploitation tool, which will then allow them to take control over it and ultimately compromise the user account, which then gives them all sorts of access to all sorts of other things. Now, in a personal world, we're probably looking at bank accounts and investments and those sorts of things. But from a corporate world, we're looking at much greater pieces of data that can be compromised. Not only could it cost the company, billions of dollars or whatever in lost revenue and so forth, but it could literally break a company and make them have to fold because of identity theft and corporate theft and all that sort of fun stuff. So those are the types of things that exist outside and as far as external threats. And you'll see that there's Microsoft Sentinel there, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But Microsoft Sentinel is sort of the tool that sits in the middle and acts as our internal firewall to protect one external from internal. From an insider point of view, however, we also have other types of risks that exist. We have leading indicators that we can look at for things like the number of violations that have happened in the history of an independent user. Somebody might be distracted, or they might be careless. They might be a disgruntled or a disenchanted employee, which always made me wonder, if somebody can be disgruntled if you're unhappy, does that mean that you're gruntled when you're happy? Interesting phrase. And lastly, subject to stressors, right? Somebody might have an addiction, or they might be found out that there's something about them, and so they get compromised by gangs of criminals or that sort of thing, and then they kind of succumb to pressure to get themselves out of the situation, right? So those are some of the leading indicators, and those are geared towards insider risks, right? And so you want to make sure that you mitigate against those types of risks. So making sure that an insider that has access to sensitive data is prevented or is protected, so that third-party applications or third-party actors can't get into the system. If that person does get access to sensitive data, the Sentinel tool will detect for anomalies. If a person doesn't normally go to this place and then all of a sudden they're connected to it, that means that there could be, data leakage. There could be potential sabotage, or the exfiltration of data to some third-party organization. An example of this that might happen in real life is, let's say that you're a company that buys land. And this is a scenario that I actually came across a few years ago. So there's a company that buys land, and for whatever reason, a competing company would always outbid them by $5. Every time they bid for a piece of land, this other company would outbid them by $5 and win the piece of land. They could never figure out what was going on. And so what they did one weekend is they said there had to have been a leak of some sort. So they turned all the computer systems off in the office. They shut off all the servers and everything. And the only thing they left on was the router that was connected to the internet. That was all they left on. And they put a traffic analyzer on it. And they found that even though everything was shut off, the phone system, the desktops, the printers, everything was shut off, there was still network traffic going out. And they couldn't figure out what the problem was. So then they went to all of the different network connectors in the building, and they found that one had an adapter that had been plugged in over the power connector on the wall to make it look like a power socket. But what it was actually a wireless adapter that was sitting on their network that was capturing information. And so every time they had their computers on, or they were on a network call or whatever else, this tool was capturing all that information and transmitting it to this other company to be able to outbid them for land purchases. So once they finally figured out what the problem was, and they went and they traced it all back, there was the capability of taking them to court and finding them guilty and putting that other company out of business. It cost them a lot of money in the long run, but they ultimately got their business to the point where it should have been, because they were no longer having to deal with somebody that was stealing the information. So basically what they had discovered was that somebody had, through some sort of method, whether they were pretending to be a caretaker or they had threatened somebody in the business who was desperate for money or something of that nature, and they put the device in the building, and and then basically the other company was laughing, so they had all the information. So the key takeaway from this is that on our external threats, again, attackers are flexible and can use a variety of attack techniques, including attacking a chain of devices or a chain of people. And this chain sequence can be used to reach the ultimate objective, which is generally going to be either ransomware or stealing data, or the combination of the two. Okay, and so we need to make sure that we have all of our systems protected to prevent those sorts of things from happening. And again, from an integrated example, making sure that our internal users are safe to prevent these types of attacks, that we can detect those sorts of items happening before they can become catastrophic or a negative impact to the company. Making sure that all of those things are working and set up correctly means that everything will be much better protected within the organization. So another tool that we have is called Defender in the modern SOC. Okay, now SOC is generally related to data centers and all those sorts of things. But when we're looking at our security operations center, we want to make sure that it has the best capabilities available to be able to prevent different types of attacks and so on. And so, if you look at this diagram now, this one's a little bit harder to read, but think about the number of different applications that you have running in your organization and how many of them are security related, right? So, if you think about, let's say 5 years ago, 6 years ago, you would sit down at your computer and you had one security mechanism, username and password. In some cases, you might have a single user password device. That's an RSA device. So let's say that, you were logging into your bank. And so you needed to have a one-time password that you would use an RSA device to be able to communicate with that. But over time, due to the different types of things that are happening on the internet and crimes and all that sort of stuff, we've had to include different layers of security into the system to prevent those sorts of operational individuals from being able to get in and do things that are not great for your system. So the Microsoft Defender tools, as we mentioned before, is the starting layer for protecting your environments. So we've got Defender for Cloud, we have Defender for On-Prem, we have Defender for Office. And this includes defending things like all of your infrastructure and applications, your platform as a service implementations, including all of your OT and IoT devices. And then we've got things for Defender for Identity. So we've got identity access and identity management. And we've got Azure AD protection to make sure that Azure AD is safe and sound. We also have Defender for Endpoint for mobile endpoints and desktop endpoints. And then Defender for Office and cloud applications. So covering all of the Office suite and so forth. You'll also notice there that in the diagrams and in the icons there, that they're not all just Microsoft icons. They interact with other tools like Oracle and Okta and SailPoint and other types of tools to harden and make sure that your environments are even that much more secure. At the security and network layer, we have other tools that we're looking at. So we're looking more at the firewall type of layer tools. So things like Fortinet and Sophos and Symantec and those sorts of Barracuda, those sorts of tools that are there for us to make sure that nobody gets into the environment to begin with. I've been in this business, as I said, for over 30 years, and I can't remember what year it was, but it was probably close to 20 years ago. I got certified in Checkpoint. So I was, certified as a Checkpoint firewall specialist and an engineer. And I've been using it pretty much my whole career, if not specifically for Checkpoint implementations, but for just general networking implementations as well. One of the other certifications that I have, which goes hand in hand with this, is I'm a CISSP, which sounds like a bunch of letters, but it stands for Certified Information Systems Security Professional. And it's one of the top security certifications in the market. It's not one that you can just go out and earn. You actually have to take a class, and then you can write the exam, and then you have to be sponsored to actually get the certification. You have to have somebody who already is a CISSP recommend that you join the group. And it's important because it looks at, from the point of view of the security models, how to implement this sort of security platform. Now, when we're looking at the data that's coming through here, we're looking at things that we can look at in terms of raw data, so system logs, activity logs, user access logs, those sorts of things, and we can run insights against those logs by using a number of different tools. So we might have classic SIEM tools, things like Splunk and those sorts of things, where we can look at large amounts of data that we've retrieved, and we can look for patterns. Right, and so we can find different types of ways and look for things and go, oh, okay, this is a hazard or this is causing a problem. And in conjunction with Microsoft Threat Intelligence, using the Microsoft Data Center, the security center that they have in Redmond, we have the ability to keep up to date instantaneously against any threats that may occur out into the world. And so we've got the capability of knowing new viruses that are coming out, or new ransomware components, and those sorts of things that are being proliferated around the world. And Microsoft actually is pretty good using their security center in being very proactive in detecting these sorts of threats and waves of releases of viruses around the world. And so it's that in conjunction with any of the other tools that you have are very useful. You'll notice over on the right-hand side, there's a section that says Expert Assistance. Microsoft has some very good tools. Don't get me wrong. They're very good. They're very highly ranked in the Gartner quadrant, and they're very good in the way that that the systems themselves function. But in that sense, you still need to have a bit more, right? So even though you might, as an organization, decide that I'm going to be able to use these tools and stuff, your staff members may not necessarily be at the point where they are experienced enough and senior enough to be able to do a lot of this on their own. So there are some third-party providers, things like KPMG or BDO, IBM, Infosys, Dell. A lot of these companies, bolster your capabilities in your organization with experienced senior people that can help your organization be much more secure using the very technology that you already own from a Microsoft point of view. Okay, so if you're an organization that that's trying to get your staff up to date, but they're not there yet, you can supplement all of them with these other third-party organizations. Some of them are more expensive than others, but they all offer the capabilities of using the technology and the tools that you already own to secure your organization. So here's an example of a standard security operations model. Okay, and so when we're looking at security, we have to understand that the amount of data that we're working on and that we're going to be using is very, very large. Right? If you think about how much data we're going through and collecting and stuff on a daily basis. So if we're going to be going through a lot of information, we want to try and automate things as much as possible. Now, obviously, you probably have heard in the market lately of all of the different automation tools, like AI tools like ChatGPT and some of the other more popular OpenAI and those sorts of things. Well, those tools now are being integrated into operations centers to be able to help you secure your environment. So if we look at this diagram, and on the left-hand side, we've got threat intelligence, and we've got the four different tiers, and the layer of complexity from top to bottom. At the top, we're looking at sort of business threat insights and different trends. So this is considered tier 3. This is where we're doing proactive hunting, right? We're basically doing standard incident management. We're going to look at the impact of the problem. We're going to assess that impact. Then we're going to manage it based on some sort of activity that we can use to prevent it from occurring again. This is basically what you would call a major incident, right? Somebody gets in, they bring the network down, they steal all the data out of your database, and it has a huge impact on the business. It might shut it down. It might harm customers and that sort of stuff, right? And so you might have just your internal team or some people from a partner company that's helping you organize and make sure that you can collect all of the information, detect where it's coming from, mitigate against it, and get your systems back up and running. The next layer is tier 2 investigation. Okay, and then tier 2, we have advanced analysis using tools like Defender and Defender for Cloud and that sort of stuff. And these are generally going to be high complexity incidents, right? Where we have, potentially multi-stage incidents where it's attacking multiple instances of a system or multiple systems within an organization. You might have alerts that pop up all of a sudden on business critical assets, such as your web server or SQL server or any of those sorts of things, as well as monitoring for known campaigns, right? And again, having connectivity to the Microsoft Security Center simplifies that, because now you can keep up to date with all of the different trends and campaigns that are happening around the world as Microsoft detects them. The next one is triage. That's tier 1. And in tier 1, these are sort of high volume incidents. And these are the types of things that, again, can be detected using things like Defender and Defender for Cloud. But these are the sorts of things that are consistent and predictable, right? Somebody plugs in a USB stick and it's got a virus on it, so it says, oh, I can't use this, and logs it off and logs the event, and then somebody from IT notices it, and so on and so on. And these sorts of activities are mostly able to be handled internally using your standard threat intelligence and threat tools, right? And then lastly is automation. There's a lot of well-known attacks. There's a lot of well-known viruses out there. I actually, which is really funny because it came out in like 1998-ish, 99, was Lovebug. I actually, somebody was working on a network I was doing some stuff on recently, and they had a memory stick and they plugged it in and it detected Lovebug. And I'm like, wow, that's 30 years ago. It's still out there. So, or 20 years ago, I guess. No, 30 years ago. Wow, I can't even do math. Anyways, so it's 2023. So as you get further down into automation, you see that the system can sort of do things on its own, and it needs less and less human interaction to be able to resolve the problems. So this is what a standard or a normal security operations model would look like. The more complex the threat is, the more complex the incident is, the greater the amount of requirements that not only will you need the tools that you already have, but any external partner that might be able to come in and help doing an assessment and make sure that your system is okay. And not only look at the impact, but also report to the stakeholders as to how bad the incident was. So that's sort of the high level of what Defender is and sort of the tools that are available. The next thing we want to look at is sort of how we're going to do incident management. So if you think about an application that's running in your organization, right? And so I have an application that has a SharePoint front end that is used as a way for individuals to order things. Okay? So it's using ASP.NET, and it's got a web form on the front end, and in the middle you have an application tier server, which is the brains of the application. It does all of the calculations and all that sort of stuff. And then on the back end you have the back end tier, the data tier of your SQL Server databases. Okay, so it's standard web-based sort of application structure. And somebody goes and infiltrates the front-end server, okay, and changes the address on the front-end server to point to a different web server that has the same almost looking address, like I mentioned before, Microsoft, except with a 1 instead of an I, and then forces all the traffic to go there, and they all get spammed. Okay, so I need a way to be able to handle that incident. So one of the things I have is the security.microsoft.com Defender portal. And this is a workspace that's been created by Microsoft, and it's designed to meet all sorts of different types of security requirements for an organization's security team. So these are the sort of the top 10 things that it does. It does more than this, but these are the top 10. First of all, it records and manages incidents. Okay, so it keeps track of all of the things that have happened on your network. So whether it's been a simple antivirus that's been detected, a simple virus that's been detected and cleaned with an antivirus tool, or it's been something that's been a bad link that's been scrubbed from an email, or any of those types of things. It tracks all of those incidents that exist within your subscription. It also has alerts. So as an example, you can have it set up so that you'll be alerted when a virus is detected or something of that nature. And so you want to make sure that everything is going to be running properly, because unless it alerts you, you don't know that it's there. So there's a way to set up alerts. There is hunting capabilities. So you can actually go looking for different types of infections or viruses or ransomware or those sorts of things that might be lurking out into your environment. We also have the Action Center. The Action Center is sort of the main center that we can use as like the dashboard, as an example, to track all of the activities that are occurring in the system. There's also Secure Store. Secure Store is a key storage location, so that when you have security keys and passwords and those sorts of things that need to be securely maintained, those can be stuck in the Secure Store. And then also we have a security score. The security score is what the system calculates your security footprint to be. So if you have, as an example, let's say that it goes out and it does an analysis of all of your systems, and it finds that, let's say you've got 200 computers, and of that 200 computers, 160 of them are, 3 versions behind in their antivirus definition files, then your security score is going to be much lower than what your normal security score would be. So you do need to make sure that you keep a track of that, so that your organization is secure as possible. The other nice thing about the secure score is that it will give you remediation steps. So it will say, oh, well, these computers are behind on their virus definition. You need to do this, and it will actually give you steps and help you remediate those issues that it detects to make your score go up and up. Obviously, as I mentioned, we have endpoint capabilities as well as email and collaboration capabilities. So we're going to be able to monitor the endpoints. We're going to be able to check the web addresses that it's going to. We'll be able to check any downloaded files. And in combination with email, we'll be able to track and look at links that have been sent to you by email, file attachments, zip file attachments, those sorts of things. That can track those, and it can block them and send the original email with a message in there saying the attachments have been blocked. Please contact your IT support, blah, blah, blah. And then that way, you at least know you got the email, but it strips out the attachments or the links. If they're okay, then it'll attach it as what's called a safe link, and it'll go to a safe link location to be able to download the link and then go to the website that you're connected to. There are a number of different reports that are available in the system. So there's, you can do all sorts of reporting on the number of incidents that you've had and the types of alerts that are there and the number of alerts that you've had and that sort of stuff. There's a settings screen, which is used to do all the configuration and setup of all of the different items that are showing in the security.microsoft.com portal for yourself. And then lastly is the permissions. And this is where you get to specify who has what rights within the system to be able to go through and actually clean up stuff and set permissions and do all of these other sorts of tasks. So there's a whole array of different things that are available when you're trying to do incident management in Defender. And this is sort of the number one place that you'll start. So let's look at an example here. We've got an incident that's occurred, okay? And we have an attacker that's attacking a number of different services, whether it's a mailbox or a device, printer, scanner, whatever, or an individual user account. The incident is recorded in Microsoft Defender 365, and it tries to create a collection of all of the collected alerts and incidences that it's noticed, and it correlates those alerts and associates the data that makes up the story of an attack, right? Generally speaking, when a person is trying to log in illegally to a system or break in or steal data or whatever, they generally have a common way of being able to do it, right? They always have a signature. North Koreans and Chinese have a signature, Russians have a signature, Americans have a signature. Everybody has a signature when they're doing certain things. And so as long as you're tracking how that information is trying to be stored, stolen, or those incidences occur, you can collect that data and you can create an attack story. From there, you can use your threat intelligence tools to correlate all the data to make sure that you can track all of the incidences, make sure that the stories, the story that you're creating is correct in terms of who's connecting and where they're connecting from and so forth. And then you'll be able to better organize your network to be able to prevent those sorts of things from happening again. And so the threat intelligence tools will collect all that information through Microsoft 365 Defender, and then allow you to store all that information and figure out how it's impacting your network. Some other things that are important when we're looking at incident management. We can see here that we've got 7 different types of incident responses or incident areas that we're going to be looking at. Obviously, we have the alerts, right? We can specify all of the alerts that we have. Here we can see the alerts and categories. We've got 36 of 52 active alerts. We've got 7 MITRE attack tactics and 1 other alert category that we've configured. There are 4 impacted devices, 7 impacted users, and 9 impacted viruses for that alerts. And then it shows you the impacted entities. That's the summary page. We can then go and look at the specific devices, and we can find out what devices are being affected and how they're being affected. We can see the individual users, and we can find out what about those users are being targeted. As mentioned, we also have the ability to look at specific mailboxes and what has happened to those mailboxes. We can look at individual applications. We can look for evidence that shows that the different types of security risks have occurred. And then lastly, we have the ability to graph that information so we can actually see what it looks like from an analytical point of view to record and track all that information. When we're setting up the incident management, you can have an updated view of all that data, and it's constantly being updated. And so on the left-hand side of the screen, you can, under incidents and alerts, you can specify the number of incidents, and you can show the alerts that were generated for those incidents. And on the right-hand side, you can see the individual alerts that were generated. Right. So we've got custom detections, we've got unfamiliar sign-ins, we've got exploits that might have a custom code in it. We might have a test email that was used to do custom detection, all sorts of different things. And it also specifies the severity of the information that was tried to be taken or that was trying to be stolen. What's the investigative state around that particular incident and alert? Who was affected by it? What was used to detect the source? When did the activity first happen? And what category does it fall under? In this particular case, it could be a serious suspicious activity. It could be an exploit, or it could be an initial access that was done as an unfamiliar sign-in, that sort of thing. So there's a number of different types of information, and all of that information is recorded under incidents and alerts in the security management tool. You can group everything together by type. So for instance, you could group them by category, you could group them by status, or you could just use individual selections. So you could go through and scroll through them one at a time. You'll also note that we have the ability to customize the columns that are displayed. We have the ability also to filter how we want the data to be displayed when we actually open up the connection. And we can specify whether or not we want to export the list. So let's say we want to export it out to Excel so we can do some further analysis, or also the expiry date, right? We want to keep the alerts for 30 days, and then after 30 days, they're automatically deleted. So we do have a number of different sort of administrative components that go with it as well. If we're going to be using automated incidents management or automated investigations, we need to know 6 different things so that we can configure it correctly. First of all, we need to know what is going to kick off the automated investigation. Like what activity, what incident is going to be that's going to have it start doing its thing. So what does it need to look out for? Is it going to be just as simple as detection of a virus? Is it going to be the potential of a login that fails? Something of that nature, right? If you're in a very highly secure organization, let's say you work for, the IRS as an example, and you don't want people who don't have permissions to view tax returns from logging into a tax return system. So let's say that an individual accidentally tries to log into the server and realizes after their first attempt that, oh crap, I shouldn't have been there. Okay, I won't log in again. Okay. The system can generate an automated investigation to say, look, this was the first time this person tried to log in. They've never logged in again. So as far as an automation is concerned, I'm going to record this incident. I'm going to generate an alert to be sent to an administrator, and that's all I'm going to do. Okay. Well, let's say that somebody has tried to log in from this address 3 times, and they get locked out eventually. So your automated investigation might, again, kick off because there was an illegal logon or a failed logon. All of that information will be recorded. Whose user account, what device did it come from, how many times did they try to do it, all of that sort of stuff. Then it may potentially expand its scope because it might be able to go and look at, where did this user account have other failed login attempts on the network? And it can collect that information as well. And then it has to figure out how it's going to remediate with that threat. So as an example, it might lock the user account and send a message to the help desk or the security center saying, this user account has tried to log into these 5 servers. It's failed all of them. They don't have access to these servers. The account's been locked out, right? Then it's up to the security team to figure out why and be able to remediate it that way. If the remediation continues through an automated system, there are different levels of automation that we can use to do immediate investigation and remediation in the system. So, depending upon the severity, the system can go and continue to do other remediation capabilities that might not necessarily need a human being. And a couple of things about, in automation levels. You need to make sure that when you set it up that you do have multiple layers of automation in your system, right? You don't want it to basically go out and completely destroy a user based on a mistake that they made. This might sound a little weird, but today in London, I live in London, as I said, and one of the talk radio stations was talking about the human apocalyptic use of AI. And that AI is going to wipe out human race as we know it within the next 20 years, and we're all going to be gone, and it'll just be robots. Well, I'm sorry, but I don't subscribe to that. I think that's nonsense. I think it could be used to be done for bad things, but I don't think it's going to wipe out the human race. That being said, automation does have its ability, and it can be used to go too far. Okay, so when you're setting up your automation, make sure that you set up different layers of automation and layers of remediation after the investigations have occurred, so that it doesn't go from 0 to, cut the person's head off and they're never allowed onto the network again, right? So there needs to be a logical level to all the different automation that you have in your system. And a computer is only as intelligent as the person who programs it. So, when you're building it out and when you're putting it together, make sure that you put in all the data that you think it should be done properly. Another, Murphy's Law is a computer's attention span is only as long as its power cord. So, if you unplug it from the wall, you don't have its attention anymore. Some other things around incident management. So when we're using the Action Center, again, we can see all of the different types of submissions that have been added into the Action Center, and we can see any pending issues that need to be resolved. We can look at historical incidents that have occurred and how those can be resolved, and those again are all listed under the Action Center and the submission. So we can also submit these to Microsoft for further investigation, so that Microsoft and their security center can analyze these sorts of scenarios and determine whether or not this is sort of a one-off or now it's sort of, a bigger wave of potential attacks that might be occurring in a greater number of computers. So there's a lot of different components and tools that make this process up. When we're setting up the system and we want to be able to look for information in the system, we will be able to set up what's referred to as advanced hunting. And as it says, advanced hunting is a query-based threat hunting tool that lets you explore up to 30 days of raw data so you can proactively inspect events in your network to locate threat indicators and entities. So you're going to have a lot of logging information. And so, you're going to be able to use the hunting tool based on a query to go out and look at all that raw data and look for trends, okay? And the two things that you can do with advanced hunting is that you could do performance of root cause analysis. And so, you're going to go out and you're going to say, oh, well, I've got this thing. And it's, oh, look at it. It's appearing in 10 different places. What's the root cause of this? Why am I working or why is the system doing what it's doing? And how do I prevent it from doing it again? The other thing is that we have the ability to create custom dirt detections, right? So again, because it's query-based and we can write the query to look for things that we want, we can create customized queries and customized detection systems to be able to go out and detect these different types of advanced threats, and then be able to determine how I'm going to deal with them, right? And so again, these might be things that have occurred. These might be things that have potentially been, deployed and it's kind of laying dormant until such a time as they need to be kicked off. But there's a number of different things that you can use the advanced hunting tools to detect. So if I want to hunt threats in my network using the advanced hunting tool, I can use the Defender tools to look for those different types of threats across the organization. Okay? So if I'm doing identity management as an example, right? So there are a number of tools and systems that enable an organization to manage and control their digital identities of all their users. So the solutions are designed to ensure that the right individuals have access to whatever resources that they're supposed to have at the right time with the right level of permissions, but still maintaining security and compliance with regulatory requirements. Now, as I said, I've been doing security for a lot of years, and one of the things that a lot of people don't like about IT, whether we like it or not, is that they seem to think IT's job is to make the end user's job difficult, right? So if you're using MFA or two-factor authentication or any of those sorts of things, and you're not an IT type person, the average person can look at that and go, oh my God, why are they making my life so difficult? Why do I have to jump through so many hoops to be able to do this, right? And it's the same thing with friends of mine who, when they first started using email, I mean, everybody, I think, and their dog, when they first started using computers, either had a Hotmail address or a Yahoo address, right? And probably 60% of the people I know that had those email addresses at some point in time had their passwords changed or passwords hacked because they put in, the standard stuff, my kids' names, my dog's names, the city I live in, something that was easy for me to remember, blah, blah, blah. And then when they got locked out, they were all mad at the person who broke in because they broke in. And I'm like, well, you should also be mad at yourself because I told you, this is one of those I told you so moments. I told you that you should make it more secure and whatever. And nowadays, of course, when you log in, it's like, oh, you need one character, one alphanumeric character, one numeric character, and at least one non-alphanumeric character. And it has to be 9 characters long and blah, 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 right? And the average person hates it. But the nice thing is that the systems now using things like MFA and fingerprinting and all the rest of it do make life a lot easier for users. But there are still people that will fight and argue that, IT's job is to make life difficult for everyone. But if we don't do these sorts of things, if we don't run these sorts of tools to look for these types of threats and prevent people from being able to get infected to begin with, then it makes our jobs a lot harder. It makes their lives much more difficult. If I want to look at sign-in logs for Azure AD, okay? So I want to search for something in the logs for the sign-ins, and the language that I'm going to use is called KQL. It's much along the same lines as SQL. It's formatted much the same, but there is slightly different, and it does take a little bit to learn how to get to use it. But it's not hard, and it's easy. It's relatively easy to use. So if we go back to the previous screen, this is KQL that we see there in the query. So it's not standard SQL, but it's pretty close. So if I'm using KQL, I want to use Microsoft 365 Defender Threat Hunting to look at AAD sign-in events. Right? It's in beta right now. It will be released from beta shortly, but it's still in beta. But this is how we would use the threat hunting to be able to find login events or sign-in events in Azure AD. If I was to look at the Azure AD log analytics, then I'm going to be looking for the sign-in logs. Okay? So depending upon where I'm looking will determine how I'm going to ask the system to pull information back for me. So as I mentioned earlier, we have the Microsoft Secure Score. And the Secure Score tells us, based on a point version and a percentage, how secure I am related to what are best practices. So in this example, I'm not doing so good, right? I've only got 622.17 of a possible 1,255 points available to me in my security platform, my security footprint. So I'm not doing really well. I'm less than 50%, right? If you're using a system like this and it is less than 50%, and you're trying to connect, let's say, to a work computer, like a system server or a VPN or something like that, it might reject your login because your system isn't secure enough. So when you do logins to remote systems, sometimes they'll do what's referred to as a health check. And that health check will then determine whether or not your system is secure enough to be able to get logged in. And in this particular case, it would look at it and go, yeah, no, you need to do a whole bunch of stuff. And so the nice thing is that the security store, the secure store account will show you where you're breaking down. So here, data, we're really good. We're almost at 90% for data, so that's great. But we're doing pretty poorly on device security, and we're doing pretty poorly at identity security. So we would need to improve those two items to be able to bring our score up to make us more compliant with standard sort of defaults and best practices in the industry. So you're given points for the following actions. So configuring recommended security features, you're given points. You're given points for doing security-related tasks, and you're given points for addressing the improvement actions with a third-party application or some other sort of alternate mitigation that you need to complete. Those things will help to increase your score. And you want to make sure that your score goes closer to 100% and as much as 100% as possible. So this would be a good time to take a short break. Let's take a break. We'll come back in a few minutes, and then we will continue on from here.
Sure, we are now going to take a 5-minute break, but before we do that, we are going to launch a quick poll that we want to invite you to participate in. Doing so helps us know how we can better serve you by telling us who might be interested in more information or in taking some additional training. In addition, we have a lot more informative webinars coming up, so please go to netcomlearning.com/webinars in order to register.
Okay, everybody, welcome back from the break. Let's carry on. Next, we want to take a look at how to track different types of threats with threat analytics. We're going to be able to assess the impact of the new types of threats, as well as review the resilience against and exposure to those types of threats. So we get basically under threat analytics, we see the latest threats that are out there. In this case, things like Python abuse of Mac OS and so on. We can see the high impact threats that are available and a threat summary. So in this case, we have an 8 out of 72. We've got 8 threats with active impact and a number of threats that have a resolved impact. And so we can see the different types of threats and how they're affecting our environment. And at the bottom, you can see the different types of virus or the different threat, the devices that have alerts related to that threat, and the devices with the alerts that haven't had that threat in the last 7 days. And so you can see sort of a trend as to whether or not threats are really starting to impact your organization, and if they're having a negative impact on the overall functioning of your organization. So incident management in Defender. So we have the capability to analyze different reports. So we have general reports that keep all of the sort of the high level general information into the report itself. We can do an endpoint report where the endpoint system will keep track of all the endpoints and the system's potential viruses and so on, as well as email and collaboration support, showing you how many emails had viruses, how many emails had compromised links, all those sorts of things. So those are all different types of reports that you can generate from incident management in Microsoft. You also have, again, the ability to configure the different types of notifications that you receive. Okay, these are also referred to as alerts. And so you can receive notifications for different incidents that occur when threat analytics detects an anomaly, as well as a specific solution area that you need to monitor. You can get notifications for those as well. So there's a number of different places that the data can come from to be able to receive notifications. The nice thing is that you don't actually have to go and search for information relating to those incidents. You can be notified of them immediately, which is good because then you can prevent and pass out validations against those types of incidents occurring across your network. So the previous slides, we looked at how we're going to deal with incidents and the types of things that we can do when we have different incidents available in the system. The next thing we want to look at is some of the features and functionality that lives in the Microsoft Defender for Cloud Applications tool. So first of all, we need to look at the Defender for Cloud framework, right? So if we think about a standard Azure cloud implementation, we've got a number of different ways that we've got implementations going. We can do platform as a service, infrastructure as a service, software as a service, that sort of stuff. Or database as a service now. And so we've got the ability to, put a whole pile of data in there. The Cloud App Framework is designed to allow us to secure applications, cloud networking and cloud systems, as well as proxy access and session information. So the Defender basically kind of stands in the way of any sort of traffic that's going from the cloud applications, the applications that might be connecting to them either in the cloud or external to the cloud, and any of the organizational people, whether it's a device or a person or whatever, that's trying to get into those applications from anywhere in any location. Okay, so if we're using direct traffic from your device to the cloud, you might only get access to certain non-secured or non-protected applications. If you're going through, a proxy or a firewall to get to it, then you're going to go through and you're going to have all of your traffic logged. So all of the cloud traffic gets logged. There'll be configuration scripts that are required to execute to make sure that your system is compliant. Or if you're going to be doing proxy connections, then you're going to connect to a proxy server, and that session will be tracked and recorded with all of your cloud traffic as well. So there's a number of different types of information that's recorded. The framework is basically there to help discover and control the use of shadow IT, right? Basically meaning, people that are using all sorts of spoofed software or computers or user accounts to be able to connect to resources. It's there to help protect all of the sensitive data, regardless of where it lives in the cloud. It doesn't necessarily have to be just on Microsoft platform. It could be on AWS, it could be in Google, it could be in any cloud platform that you have. It helps to protect against all sorts of different cyber threats, as well as anomalies that may occur. And it validates that the access that you're giving to your users is compliant with what your security and system requirements are. So nobody can log in with an unprotected phone or an unprotected laptop or any of those sorts of things. It's making sure that everything is working as required. You also have the ability to explore all of your cloud applications with the Cloud Discovery tool. And so one of the things that you should do is get a general idea or a general picture of your Cloud Discovery apps by using the Cloud Discovery dashboard. Okay? And from here, you're going to look at the overall cloud app use in your organization. And this is going to be viewed in the high-level usage overview area. Then you would go down one level deeper and see which are the top categories that are used in your organization for each of the different types of parameters that you're monitoring. And you can see that and see how much of that usage is done by what I refer to as sanctioned apps. Then you could go another layer deeper and see all the apps in a specific category in the Discovered Apps tab. And then you can lastly check how the discovered apps are spread according to different geographical locations. And that's done through the app headquartered map. Right? And then lastly, you can review the risk score, which you see on the right-hand side. And this is basically telling you your overall app risk level, I should say. And this is done through doing discovery alerts, looking at statuses of alerts and that sort of stuff. And so here you can see, just what your risk level actually is. So the Microsoft Defender, again, also gives you the capability of doing conditional access. So if you think about what conditional access is on a network, right? So if you have Azure AD and you've got MFA configured, you have to log in with your credentials, so your username and password, and then you got to put in your MFA, whether it's password or a number code or fingerprint or whatever it is, to be able to get in and log into your system or use your application. Let's say you lost your cell phone, right? And you don't have access to the app. The administrators can go in and temporarily give you conditional access, which basically means that for one or two tries, you'll be able to log into the system without having the MFA enabled because you don't have the device, right? But the other type of conditional access is that you'll only get access to an application when you are required to have it. And so what this will do is it will prevent what's referred to as data exfiltration, right? So it'll basically block the capability to download, copy, cut, print, any of those sorts of documents on any type of unmanaged device, right? Cell phone, personal laptop, any of that stuff, right? You'll only be able to print it basically when you're at the office. It also helps to require authentication context. Basically what it does is it looks at your Azure AD conditional access policies and implements a greater level of conditional access when a sensitive action occurs during that particular login session. So if you are already logged in and then you do something that triggers the sensitivity alerts, it will reevaluate your conditional access policy to make sure that you're actually secure enough to prevent something negative from occurring. You can also protect downloads to make sure that documents get labeled and encrypted properly using Microsoft Purview. You can also prevent the upload of unlabeled files. So you can block any type of not classified documents into the system. So they need to be classified before you're allowed to upload them. You can block potential malware. You also have the ability to monitor user sessions to make sure that they're compliant during the entire time that they're logged in, not just to get logged in, but all the time that they're logged in. You can block access at a very granular level for specific applications and or users based on the type of risk factors that they've calculated. And lastly, you can block any sort of custom activity. Any type of thing that might generate a risk to the system, such as sending sensitive content through Teams, you can block that instantly and prevent those users from being able to take that action. You also have the ability to use the Defender tool to classify and protect sensitive information. So here we've got the ability to do 4 types of things. First of all, we can discover the data. We can then classify the data as being sensitive, right? So we're going to go out and we're going to look for all the data. We're then going to classify it to be sensitive or different levels of sensitivity. And then from there, we can protect that data and make sure that only individuals who need access to it get access to it, and only the types of activities that we want them to use it for are used. And then lastly, we can monitor and report against the protection and the classification of that data to make sure that it's sufficient and that it's doing what it is that we've asked it to do in terms of a level of security and so forth. But the cool thing is that it works across all sorts of different layers of technology. We could use it across devices, so whether it's desktops or printers or laptops or tablets. We could do it across different applications, SharePoint, OneDrive, those sorts of things. We can do it also across different types of cloud services. And we also have the ability to integrate it with on-premise networks as well. So really, this is a way for us to extend our on-prem data rights management system through Active Directory into a more cloud-based environment where we can set the properties in rights management server in an on-prem application or file, and then when it goes to the cloud, it will carry that information sensitivity with it and run through the cloud application features tool and make sure its sensitivity and its information is still secured. So the antivirus tool that is available in Microsoft Defender now has the ability to do threat hunting. And this is for us to be able to detect and respond to different types of threats and how those things are affecting us. And these are the sort of the top 8 things that we have, techniques that we have for threat hunting in the system. We can look for behavior-based detections, right? Who's trying to connect to what they shouldn't be. We can use machine learning that exists in Azure to help leverage the capabilities of doing analysis with large amounts of data and also be able to identify patterns that might be positive in terms of malicious behavior. We also have cloud-powered protection, so we can use all the cloud capabilities. We can collect the data, we can analyze that large amounts of data in the cloud from all sorts of sources, such as sensors, endpoints, threat intelligence feeds, all sorts of different things, and then use the collective knowledge and intelligence that Microsoft has to detect and respond to those different types of threats more effectively. We also have real-time protection, right? So Microsoft Defender will continuously monitor the system's activities, any file operations, network connections, any of that stuff, and look for critical events in real time that will help us protect the environment or the networking environment and the end users. We also have threat intelligence integration, where we're going to be using various threat intelligence sources, such as Microsoft's own threat intelligence feeds or government known feeds. So as an example, the British government, GCHQ publishes threats and that sort of stuff for people in the UK. You can use that sort of integration as well. You can do endpoint detection and response configurations to make sure that everything is detected and responded to properly. As we mentioned previously, quite a bit of automated investigation and remediation for those investigations. And lastly, making sure that we can report correctly against all of the threats and do analytics to show how many threats are affecting our environments and so on. The last thing we're going to look at here in today's sessions are an introduction to what Sentinel is. So Microsoft Sentinel is a cloud-native SIEM application. And really what it's there for is it's to collect, analyze, and perform security operations on computer systems. Now, Sentinel is included as part of your Azure subscription or your M365 subscription, and it will collect the data so you have visibility to the entire platform, and it can see everything that you're doing. It can then detect, based on analytics and hunting, what's happening on the system to make sure that you're not doing anything you shouldn't be and everything is in compliance. It can be used to investigate different incidents to make sure that those things are not going to have a negative impact on the system. And lastly, the response capabilities, using automation to respond to any sort of interaction or negative impact that the system might have on the production environments that you're running in. The SIEM tool is great because it does collect this information and it does analyze it quite quickly, and it is cloud-based, which is nice, but it also allows you to connect to on-prem networks as well. The SIEM tool does allow you to interact with other applications. So like, for instance, Siemens SIEM tool. IBM has one and some other ones as well. So you do have the ability to interact with other different tools to track, things like data changes in an application and so forth. So the components that make up the Sentinel tool include a number of different data connectors, parsers, so that you can actually parse the messages out into the appropriate streams that can be useful for doing analysis. There's a number of workbooks that are generated to help you deal with problems. There's analytics rules. There are queries that are pre-built for hunting for anomalies in your system. There's a number of different notebooks that you can use to record information about the different anomalies. You can do incidents and investigation management through the SIEM tool. And again, there's the automation playbooks, as well as using Azure Logic Apps, custom connectors to create implementations and automation of different types of remediation components in the system. The Sentinel is also a tool that is used for security operations on both, as I mentioned, the cloud and on-prem environments. So if you want to use Sentinel, you can collect data from just about everywhere, and you can perform all of your security operations on that data, specifically to identify suspicious activity. We have secure operations, could also include things like visualization of log data, doing anomaly detection, hunting for threats, as well as doing automated responses, a number of the things we've already discussed. And if you want to figure out whether or not this is the way that you want to go, and if it's the tool for you, it is cloud native, so there's no requirement for servers to be installed. It will scale automatically. There's nothing that you have to do as an administrator. Obviously, you have all of the benefits of the Microsoft implementations, all of their research features, their machine learning is entirely behind you. It has support for online, hybrid, and on-prem connectors, right, in different types of environments. And the SIEM and the data lake are all in one. So all of the data is stored in the data lake. The SIEM tool accesses the data lake as a single application, not as a separate application. And there's very clear requirements, right? You really don't have to have anything. As long as you have a security operations center that you can monitor the SIEM tool from, that's really all you need, right? In fact, if you go into a room and you got a big 60-inch television, you can place it up on there, and it's very obvious as to what the status of your network is. So to plan for the Sentinel workspace, you need to include, if you're doing single tenants, you set up a single tenant with a single Microsoft Sentinel workspace. You could also do a regional Sentinel workspace if you've got a single tenant that exists in multiple places, geographically speaking. And you also have the ability to set it up if you're using multi-tenants in multiple geographic locations. If you want to set it up across tenants, you'll be using a tool called Azure Lighthouse. And really what this does is it allows you to centralize the administration, and then you get them onboarded into Lighthouse, and you would use your just subscription through the directory subscription management tool to manage all of the different workspaces. So you'd have a workspace in each, in this particular case, customer would be a different tenant, and then you would center them into Lighthouse, and you'd be able to do central administration using that tool. But it is possible to track across multiple workspace or multiple tenants rather. And if we want to create a Sentinel workspace, we'll do the Sentinel installation prerequisites to make sure that we have the required permissions for our Azure subscription. Then we'll specify the regions that we need to do this deployment to, and then select the newly created analytics workspace to actually add the Sentinel to be able to record all the information. We need to have specific permissions and roles in the system to be able to run Sentinel. So there are specific roles that are available. There's an administrator role, there's a management role, and so on, and a help desk role. We need to make sure that we have the appropriate Azure roles and monitor analytics roles enabled for those users. We need to specify the Sentinel roles and the actions that are allowed by those roles, and any particular custom roles or advanced RBAC configurations that you've got in your network to handle how you're doing administration in your own Azure tenant. All of those roles need to be set up and configured so that the Sentinel can control and work properly in the environment. So this is an example of a data retention screen, because we do get a lot of data that's recorded when we're using Sentinel. And as you can see there, there's a number of pricing tiers for the amount of information that we store. And so it's a good idea to specify the number of days in which we would have data retention. And this is just so that you don't run out of space, right? So if you're looking at 500 megabytes per VM per day data allowance, that's sort of the standard configuration. Anything that's bigger than that, you're going to start paying for it, and it could get quite pricey. So, and then lastly, we're going to look at a couple of different types of logs that are included with the Sentinel tool. There are three primary log types that come with the system. There are the analytics logs, and this is all the data that's stored. There's a standard ingestion cost that's included in the system. And it does all the log queries and alerts. There are the basic logs, which are the data that's actually recorded from all of the systems. In this case, alerts are not supported. And lastly, archive logs. These are logs that store all the data up to 7 years. You cannot query them directly, right? But you can extract the data and then run queries against them that way. Also, the basic logs, there's a retention capability, so the data expires through that. The same with the analytics logs, but if you have archive logs, you can reload it into the analytics area to do job searches and analysis of those logs. So that was a lot of information that I threw at you over the last little bit here, and obviously it is a very high-level presentation of a very complex subject. There's a lot of information that you should know and work with when you're doing this sort of thing. The next thing we want to just point out to you is how am I going to learn all of this, right? How am I going to get to know what I'm supposed to do and how I'm supposed to configure it and all that sort of stuff. And I want to show you some things about what happens if you join with Netcom to do some hands-on learning. First of all, why would I want to do this? Well, there are some benefits to getting a certification. First of all, it makes you stand out, right? I know that people think, oh, it's just a certification and it doesn't mean anything. It does help you validate your skills because it shows that you actually understand something. It has the potential to help you earn more salary and make you more employable because other organizations will want your skills. And if you have a certification that you can show that, hey, I passed this exam and therefore I have these skills, it could increase your salary, as much as 20%. And well over almost 50% of people that were surveyed in this survey that Netcom did with Microsoft and Pearson VUE, they believe that they have an increased capability of being employed because of the certifications that they earned. You also have the ability to basically, as I call it, boast about your security, your certificate that you've earned or your certification, because you get what are called badges. And these badges can be used on social media. They're discoverable because people can see them. They're verified because you only get them if you pass an exam through Microsoft. And you also have the ability for employers to look at your skills. As you can see, it might be Azure, it might be cloud, it might be identity management, it might be security, that sort of thing. But they can see kind of what areas you've specialized in when you're dealing with your certifications. There is a book that's available in the student portal called With a Win-Win of Certification. And it's a guide basically that talks about how a well-trained staff and a well-trained individual makes the business more efficient, right? If you think about it, if you're certified and you're trained in a piece of software and you know how to use it, you can solve problems faster. You can prevent problems from occurring. You can save money by not having to go to third-party support, and you're ultimately going to make the users happier because the systems will be up more often than down. I've been in IT, as I said, for a very long time, and nobody has ever called IT to say you're doing a great job. The only time somebody calls IT is to tell you and complain that it's broken. And believe me, I've had that a lot. So it's really nice to be able to solve a problem before that phone call comes to say, hey, you jerk, you need to fix this and make it work. What are we paying IT for? It's always broken. On the other hand of that, then a lot of times they'll say, what are we paying IT for? You never have any work to do, but they just don't know. So some of the recommended courses that if you want to become certified as a security professional is MS 500, which is the Enterprise and Hybrid Environment Security Administrator exam. And then you also have SC 200, which is basically what today's presentation was on, which dealt with threat management, monitoring, and responses. SC 300 deals with implementing authentication in Azure Active Directory. And SC 400 is planning and implementing technology support compliance, which is more of an an architecture level certification. The basics, though, that everybody needs to start with is SC 900, which is Microsoft Security, so especially if you're new to it, and MS 900 if you're new to cloud or MS 365 SaaS-based applications and implementations. So those are both the fundamentals class, an exam, and once you pass those and take the ones above that, you'll be considered a security professional from Microsoft's point of view. So if you do decide to do role-based training, which is instructor-led by Netcom, you'll have an instructor like me, not necessarily me, but somebody like me that will be presenting. They will be experts in that subject area and be able to provide real-world use cases in terms of the context of the training that they're giving you to kind of expand the capability of what the training is versus what you would do just as a self-paced student, as an example. Every course comes with a certification virtual environment that has virtual lab exercises and practices that give you the hands-on features, that hands-on practice to try all those things so that you actually get to play with the tools. And you get access to that virtual environment for up to 180 days after the course is done. So you can go back and retry things. And if you're studying for an exam, you can practice them over and over again and get to understand them really well. And it's also a sort of a play area in the sandbox that you can go in and try stuff that's not on your own network, that you don't have to worry about breaking it because it's a virtual environment that gets refreshed after a certain period of time. You also get access to all of the instructor classes that are recorded for up to 90 days. You get full access to the Netcom 365 Learner Portal. You get 24/7 support from the Netcom people, and you get free repeats if it seems that it's needed. Some facts about the certification renewals. Microsoft has started in the last couple of years of making exams renewable every couple of years or every year. And so what ends up happening is that if you pass an exam 6 months prior to it expiring, the certification expiring, you'll get a notification from Microsoft that your certification expires in 6 months, and you have 6 months to do the renewal. Now, the renewals are free. They're done on the MS Learn website. You can take the exam as many times as you need to. It's open book. It will point out the modules that you need to study to pass the exam. And again, you can take it as many times as you need to within that 6 months to pass the exam. The only caveat is if you fail it 2 times in a row, you have to wait 24 hours before you're allowed to do the next retry of the exam. And also, it doesn't matter when you do the renewal in that 6-month period. If you are, if you wrote an exam and you were originally certified in April 2022, and your certification expires in April of 2023, but you started the certification exam in November of 2022 and passed it then, your certification still does not expire again until April of 2024. So it's not going to be, November 2023. It's still a year from when your original date was, regardless of when you wrote the exam in that 6-month period and passed it. So it doesn't, you don't lose that extra time. But if you do have questions around it, just contact Netcom, and they'll be more than happy to help you walk through that process and get yourself certified or recertified. So, as it says, let's get trained and certified, and hopefully everybody will be able to get some training in them, be able to implement this system, and be very secure and successful in your own corporate organization. Thank you very much, everybody, and I'm going to pass it back now.
Thank you, Brent. That was very informative. I know everyone is looking forward to the Q&A session, so go ahead and start putting your questions into the questions panel. And while you do that, I would like to give the presentation rights over to Sagnik, our vendor manager, to introduce you to our promotions and webinar-related courses.
I hope my screen is visible.
Yes, you are audible and we can see your screen.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us today in this insightful session. I'd like to announce that all the participants in today's session have been given exclusive free access to official Microsoft courseware on SC200 Microsoft Security Operations Analyst. The best part is you also get to claim your digital achievement badges on Microsoft Learn to celebrate your Microsoft skilling journey. To begin, you will need to click on the link provided in the chat box of your GoToWebinar viewer. Alternatively, you can find the link in the downloadable event handout as well. Once you click on that link, you will land on this page, which is currently visible on my screen, which contains all the instructions for redeeming your courseware and badges. Allow me to demonstrate this process, and I encourage you to follow along with me. So over here, you can see it says, thank you for joining our master class. Over here in this section, you'd see what is available for you as part of this redemption process. So first of all, you'd get free access to your courseware and also the digital achievement trophies and badges from Microsoft to celebrate your learning accomplishments. There is a code that is listed here. And for this event, we have the code 9VQ7G3. So this code is going to be used by you to redeem your courseware and the achievements. And the process for doing that has been explained in the later half on this landing page. So if here you can see there are 5 simple steps for you to follow. So the step 1 is for you to sign into your Microsoft Learn account using your personal or professional Outlook or Hotmail account. If you don't have an existing account, don't worry, just click on the Create One option, as you can see over here. Once you go to the Microsoft Learn page, you have to click on the Sign In, which would be on the top right corner of your screen. You can use your credential if you already have one. If you don't have an account, feel free to create one using this option over here and follow the steps. Once you are done creating your account, all you need to do is log in using the account credentials and click on the profile page, which is accessible from once again on the top right corner. You'd see your display picture. Just click on that. A menu will expand and you'd find the profile button right below your name and email ID. Once you click on the profile button, you would be redirected to your profile page, which is your Microsoft Learn dashboard. It shows all your achievements, badges, and all the trophies, everything in one view. If you're logging in for the first time, you won't see these numbers. But the next step that you have to follow is go to the achievements section by clicking on the achievements button on the left hand panel. So you'd see over here, activity training certifications Q&A. After that, the achievements button is located as has been highlighted here in the visual screenshot. So you click on the achievements button, then you would find an option to redeem your code. Now, this is where the code that we discussed at the top of the page comes into use. So all you need to do at this point is click on the redeem your code now, which is highlighted here as visible on the screen. Once you click on that, a pop-up menu is going to appear, which is going to ask you for the code that you need to redeem. For this class, you need to use this code 9VQ7G3, which is written here as well. Just make sure you copy this code, you type it in this box. Make sure there are no trailing spaces before or after, and then click on the redeem button. Once you click on the redeem option, you'd see this message claiming that your achievement has been successfully added to your profile. Now you have gotten successfully the access to all your courseware as well as the digital trophies and badges, all within your Microsoft Learn profile. Be proud of your achievements and celebrate it by sharing your digital trophy on your LinkedIn profile. Don't forget to tag Netcom Learning and Microsoft on your posts for maximum visibility and reach. These badges issued by Microsoft can showcase your newly acquired skills and enhance your career opportunities. So we highly recommend you get these redeemed as soon as possible. Thank you so much. Now we'll move on. I just walk us over some of the resources and offerings that we have related to today's topic. As part of the handout, you'd find the content section. Everything is hyperlinked here, so feel free to use these links to visit the specific section that you want to explore. A quick word about us, Netcom Learning. We are the winners of the 2022 Microsoft Learning Partner of the Year award, being recognized by Microsoft as the top learning partner in the world, being selected from over 3,900 nominations across 100 countries worldwide. We have serviced over 80% of the Fortune 1000 clientele, and we have a significant presence within the US government sector, having served 100 plus US military bases. Overall, we have supported over 16,000 plus enterprise customers, having successfully trained over 175,000 professionals. We also enjoy a 96% recommendation from our client base, and all our trainings are delivered by a portfolio of 3,000 plus certified instructors. We are the one-stop solution for all your corporate upskilling needs, being an authorized training partner for every industry leading vendor, including Microsoft, AWS, Cisco, CompTIA, PMI, and more. As part of this handout, you'd find the link to today's session recording. Feel free to access this recording to revisit the concepts covered as part of today's masterclass. All the participants today have gotten access to our Netcom 365 learning portal. It is a highly effective tool that is leveraged by our customers in their scaling journey. We highly encourage all the participants to activate your portals and explore the resources available within Netcom 365. Now, quickly, let's take a look at some of the latest offers on the official Microsoft trainings and certifications. For our enterprise customers, we have the Microsoft Skilling Program, which is the one-stop end-to-end upskilling program spanning across the entire official training portfolio of Microsoft across product lines like Azure, Microsoft Security, Microsoft 365, Dynamics 365, and Power Platform. Our solutions are highly aligned to industries verticals, backed by industry specific subject matter expertise. These are highly customizable. So we tailor the offerings based on your specific training objectives, the specific use cases and projects that your team needs to deliver on. As part of this program, your team will be getting end-to-end skilling plan support, wherein we'd be identifying the skill gaps that exist within your learners, and we would find the most cost-effective and impactful Microsoft skilling plan to achieve your business goals. We also encourage all our customers to explore our 2 hour private group training demo. It is a great opportunity for teams to explore the benefits of hands on Microsoft training. These are also highly customizable. So, if you are interested and you have a team to train, get in touch with our learning consultants, and we can devise an agenda that fits your needs. And as part of this offering, you'd also get end to end support on deploying your skilling plan. Moving on, as it has already been covered by our instructor, you'd find some facts about certifications. We highly encourage everyone to also check out the official ebook from Microsoft on the win-win of certifications, how employees and businesses thrive through continuous learning. You can access this free resource by using the link included in this handout. Our Netcom Plus learner subscription is the ideal tool to maximize your team's training budget. It's a subscription model, so you pay one time and you get unlimited access to authorized training across vendors like Microsoft, AWS, Cisco, CompTIA, and more for a span of 12 months. There are 3 packages available under Netcom Plus. You can start and explore the offerings with the silver package. We highly recommend you explore the gold and the platinum packages, which come with over 400 plus e-learning modules and 100 plus VILT course offerings. For our enterprise customers, we have the Learning Passport. So if you have a distributed team and you need access to flexible team training, Netcom Learning's Learning Passport is the tool for you. As under this solution, you get access to our entire authorized training portfolio covering 4,000 plus official courses. So all your funds are parked safely with us with a validity of 12 months. And once you maintain your training funds with Netcom Learning as part of the Learning Passport, you enjoy additional training fund value up to 100%. Feel free to learn more about this offering using the link here, and our learning consultants can guide you on how you can leverage this solution to power your organizational skilling requirements. Now we would quickly take a look at the recommended courses related to today's topic. In this slide, you'd find the fundamentals and the role-based courses mapped here. Everything is hyperlinked. So all you need to do is just click on the course that you are interested in exploring, and you would be able to access all the related documentation on the same. We also encourage everyone to explore our upcoming free offerings. We have an event that is listed here. Feel free to use the links to register for the same. All our VILT classes are backed by an offer currently. So all the trainings that you take come with a certification exam voucher and the practice test included with the price of the course. For Microsoft classes that you take with us, you get an 180-day access to the virtual labs so that you can master your role-based skills, along with a 90-day access to the class recordings for you to refer back even after your training has completed with us. Thank you. Have a nice day.
Thanks so much for guiding us through that information, Sagnik. And now we're going to go ahead and jump right into our question and answer session. Our first question is, what type of Azure subscription do you need to use threat protection?
You get access to the threat protection tools in Azure when you purchase your Azure subscription. You also get access to the threat protection tools when you purchase your Microsoft 365 subscription, so Office 365, that sort of thing. Depending upon the level of security that you need and how much interaction you need with the tool, there are some charges for things like data storage. So as an example, when you're using the SIEM tool, if you're keeping a lot of log storage, you'll have to pay for that. But generally, the basic versions of the threat tools are included with your subscriptions.
Next question. Does the M365 tools connect to other SIM tools?
Yes, as I think I mentioned in one of the slides, that it will allow you to connect to other third-party SIEM tools like Siemens, IBM, that sort of stuff. So you don't have to rely specifically on Microsoft. You could use other systems and merge them all together to collect the information and process it.
Last question for the day is, does this tool work with other Microsoft applications?
It will work with some other Microsoft applications. So as an example, the SIEM tool will work with things like Office and SharePoint and stuff, but it doesn't work directly with tools like Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations. There's ways to kind of programmatically make it work, but out of the box, it's not capable. So there is some development that you would have to do to make it work, but generally speaking, those tools will work with pretty much the entire Office suite, at least, if not some of the Dynamics suite.
Once again, I want to remind you that as you leave the session today, you will be presented with a short survey. We would like to request for you to help us by taking a quick moment to participate in that survey. Your feedback really helps us understand your learning experience as we are constantly looking at how we can improve our future sessions. The survey answers are measured on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 representing outstanding and 1 representing poor. We want to thank all of you for joining us today, and if you do come up with any additional questions, feel free to send them to webinar@netcomlearning.com at any time. We hope that you found today's webinar informative, and we look forward to seeing you back here with us soon. Feel free to tell your friends and colleagues about our webinars and other courses. Have a great day, everyone.